Ladies and gentlemen, super excited to have this next guest back on the show. This is one of the most popular, successful, and talented men in the UFC featherweight division. We're talking about none other than Northern California's own Team Alpha Male, Mr. Josh Emmett. Welcome back to the show, Josh.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Now, I believe, if I'm not wrong, that that's the team you're with and you'll always be with. I know, although I know once in a while I announce someone's team and they say I'm no longer with that team. But I have a feeling you're not about to say that, or are you?
I am. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say no.
No. Yeah, same team. This is my home. I'm from Sacramento. I'm just lucky and fortunate that one of the best teams for the lighter weights was in my backyard. So, I'm not going anywhere.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you, man, during the pandemic, I think you have had one fight, or was that right before the pandemic? I think it was before. I don't think you've had any during the pandemic, have you?
No, I fought during the pandemic. The Burgos fight was June 20th of 2020. So.
That's right. Yeah, and I think
you were there.
I was there. Yeah, I was there. Yeah, that was an amazing fight. It was fantastic, and you made a statement right there. And I think that division, man, I just threw that out the other day or last week on the show. People talk about 155. Yes, it's an exciting division, but I think 45 has more killers. I mean, if you run down the names yourself, Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, Yair Rodriguez, Zabit Magomed Sharapov, Brian Ortega, Edson Barbosa, and I think I'm even forgetting a couple. It's just a bunch of absolute murderers, and there's some action going on. It looks like we have the Ultimate Fighter reality show with Alexander Volkanovski on one side and the other one, Coach Brian Ortega. Have you been watching the show?
And unfortunately, no, I have not. I wanted to tune in and kind of watch it just because, we have two teammates on there. I wanted to see their shows, but just with the time and everything it's on, I really need to, get caught up on that and go back and watch some of the fights. I've just been kind of following around. I know how our teammates have done, but I just haven't really tuned into the show yet, unfortunately.
Understood. Now, Team Alpha Male did pretty good this past Saturday, didn't they?
Yeah, they did actually. We went 3-0, so that was a good weekend, and it was kind of nice because I bet on my teammates as well. I did a 3-fight parlay. They were all underdogs, so it was a pretty good payout.
That is awesome. I'm glad. You deserve it, man. I mean, because you guys work so hard. It's nice to be able to see you make some money without having to take any damage. And that's great. Remind me who the three guys that won from Alpha Male were this past Saturday.
Yeah, so Macy Barber won, and then Darren Elkins, and then Halion Paiva.
That's right. And I'll tell you what, Paiva was amazing how he hung in there, man, because he looked like he was stepping in potholes on a few occasions, and like he was a little bit wobbled, but he just kept taking it to his opponent, who was favored. You're right, and Paiva was like 3-1 dog, and then Darren Elkins, man, how does a guy like Darren Elkins keep on going? Like, he's like a zombie. I had his opponent on our show a week before, Derek Minner, and he was respectful, but he really felt like his youth and his athleticism, and he's at the great school also, Glory MMA with James Krause. He felt very confident that he had the skills that it takes to beat Darren Elkins, and Elkins has so much scar tissue. How does he do it? How does that guy keep going? He's almost like a zombie, isn't he? Like, you can't hurt him.
He's the damage, he's got it tattooed across his chest for a reason, but Darren said it before too, it's like these guys are younger, they're more athletic, they're faster, they're more powerful, but Darren, he has conditioning for days, and he's technically sound, and once he gets it to the ground, it's like he just has to I would call it the old rope-a-dope, he tires these guys out, and then he'll break them. Like, as long as, and he continues to get better and better with his striking and everything, but he's so good on the ground. Like, once he gets you on the ground, and if he takes your back, you're going to have a bad night. And he showed it, he had a very tough first round. That guy was really good, coming out throwing heavy punches. He was taking him down. He kept going for so many submissions, but that guy is so damn hard to submit. He's like, he'll just keep fighting and fighting. And I wonder how many submissions he actually defended in the first round. And then I feel like Minner might have just kind of gassed himself out. And that was kind of the game plan going into that fight for Elkins. They knew he was tough. They knew he was going to come out really hard. And, he kind of withstood the first round and then got him tired. And he kind of just got so exhausted. And that's the worst thing in any sport, especially fighting, wrestling, whatever it may be. When you get tired, it's like it makes a coward out of all of us. You know
yes.
what I mean? And,
yes.
Yeah.
They say that exhaustion makes a coward out of all of us. Absolutely. And I've never been a professional fighter, but just growing up training in sports and martial arts, I remember that it's really true. And that was featherweight. So I would imagine you probably got some good mat time in there and training time with Elkins. Huh?
Yeah, he's been with the team for quite some time now. I want to say 5 years or so. So yeah, he's always one of my main training partners. And if I was in the gym, I would have gave him looks and things like that. But several times, I'll be a training partner for him and vice versa. So he's a great guy, such a hard worker, and he continues to kind of shut down or just like he was a big underdog too. He's been an underdog. I think he's won 10 fights being an underdog in Vegas. So that's someone you want to bet the house on when he fights.
Without a doubt. Now, in speaking with Derek Minner before, and he was all respectful of Elkins, and but obviously a fighter has to be confident. We were talking about the fight that I think created the Darren Elkins legacy, that Mirsad Bektic fight from about 4 years ago, where Bektic was like beating the brakes off of Darren, and Darren just hung in there and just turned the tables on him. And Minner was saying that Bektic trained out in Nebraska where he did. It's funny, I was sure Bektic was a European guy, and he may have been, but apparently he spent years in the Midwest.
Yeah, he's from Bosnia, but he wrestled out there in Nebraska and with Jordan Burroughs and all the, but he's I think his family, I don't know if he was born in Bosnia, but I know he represents the country.
Right. And I appreciate that. Didn't know he had that that wrestling pedigree or with some of those guys. But Minner pointed out that it did seem like Bektic kind of gassed a little bit against Darren. And Minner was, I think, aware of that. And they train really hard and really smart over at Glory MMA with James Krause. Yeah. My question to you, and not maybe specifically only looking at the Minner-Bektic fight, but if a fighter knows that, and also same thing when Paiva's opponent, the Matrix, Kyler Phillips, you have these guys that are really good, and they train hard, and their cardio is good, and they even know that they're going to need cardio probably against these opponents, and yet it still seems like they gas out. Also looking at that amazing striking matchup with Adrian Yanez against Randy Costa. Is it all a gas tank thing? Is it like an adrenaline flush? Is part of it getting discouraged that you can't take this guy out? Or maybe the punishment put on you? I know a lot of people don't know that the more hurt, the more you start getting touched and hurt, the more it kind of squeezes the cardio out of you. But what is it, and let's say in those three instances, and what causes fighters who you think know that they needed the cardio, and all of a sudden you see them looking like they've gassed out?
Yeah, it's hard to say just because it's with, you see it with so many different fighters, and I think it comes into play their not their work ethic, because everyone's training hard, everyone's at the highest level, but I think it's like whether you're doing strength and conditioning, if your cardio is at the right level. I really don't know, but you do see it time and time again, like the Bektic and Elkins fight. Bektic was winning the fight for like 14 and a half minutes, and then he started to kind of gas, and then Darren will not stop. He won't stop, and he found a little opening, hit him with a hard shot that hurt him, and then he head kicked him with like 10 seconds left and won that fight. Yep. It was like one of the biggest comebacks in UFC history.
Yep.
But but then like I said, you see guys kind of fizzle out. And that's one thing, like I know from wrestling most of my life and at the college level that is the thing. When you get tired, it's like technique goes out the window. So many things kind of go out the window, you know what I mean? And so that's one thing I pride myself on too with cardio is, people also say, oh, people with muscle, they have more muscle, so more oxygen has to flow through those muscles and they'll gas. And that's the thing, even going back to the Burgos fight when I was fighting, they said how much of a gas tank he has and things like that, and I won't be able to hang. And I was kind of seeing some of that stuff. And my coaches and teammates know, I was like, man, I can match anyone's cardio and I'll beat it. I get my second win in the second, third round. And it just depends on the pace. It's the pace that you set early. Maybe some people do come out of the gates just way too fast, and maybe their opponent sets a different type of pace, and they just can't sustain that for 2-3 rounds. And it's just, if you're not training the way that you're going to fight, it's that also will inhibit you too, so I literally, everything that I do in training is 100%, not saying like sparring and things like that, but it's just like I have an intention going into each workout, each practice that I'm going to push myself to the absolute limit, and then I'm going to try to go further, because we're going to get tired in fights. Like you're going to get tired in a fight, but you have to, I personally, I welcome it. I accept it, and then you'll kind of see, once you see someone start to break, it's like, that's when you put it on him more. And I think Darren, he has the same, like mindset I do too. It's like, we're just going to keep going and going and going. And there's no way that like we'll ever stop, even if we're getting beat up. Like you literally have to finish us, have the ref step in, or put us away, because we're both going to continue to keep on coming, and that's what he does. And he's super exciting to watch, and he's a great guy. So I'm super happy he won and got a $50,000 bonus.
Absolutely, that is great to see. Do you think some of the younger fighters maybe make the mistake of watching tape and saying, you know what, all I got to do is put it on this guy for like 5 minutes to 7 minutes, and I'm going to break him? And they kind of maybe embrace that, and they basically say, I'm going to focus on this so much, I'm going to empower this so much that it can't help but happen. I'm going to manifest it. I'm going to visualize it. This guy, I'm going to break either by the end of the first round or early in the second. And then all of a sudden the fight comes, and that 7th minute is there, and the guy's still standing, and then you see the guy with that game plan looking like a deer in the headlights a little bit. They're like thinking, yeah. Oh no. Right?
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. It just depends. Everyone's different. It all comes down to their mindset and their mentality. If you're just training for 5 minutes, I'm going to break this guy in 5 minutes, he's not going to get out of the first round, and you're just, that's kind of your intention. And then you go in there and the guy's tough as hell and he's not breaking. And then after you're sitting on the stool and you're like, oh man, I'm exhausted. My arms are heavy. My legs are heavy. You're not really listening to your coaches. The other guy's up there bouncing around, then that's going to screw with your head. You know what I mean? And then maybe that does cause some people to, kind of fold or break in those situations. But I don't know. I find it challenging or kind of tough for maybe people believe that they're going to put someone away fast, but they have to be prepared for the full fight. You know what I mean? Like if I'm fighting 15 minutes, I'm going to be prepared for a 20-25 minute high paced fight. If I'm fighting a 25-minute fight, you better believe I'm going to be able to go for 6-7 rounds at a high pace. And I was fighting on the regional scene. I was fighting title fights and fighting 5-round fights, and the 4th, 5th round championship rounds, I'm getting fresher and fresher. I get a second win, and I feel like I can just, go 10 rounds.
Absolutely, and that's what it's all about. And I think that's where maturity comes in. I know there's anomalies where some of these guys are 25 years old and they're killing it in the UFC, but more of them are not. More guys are really starting to do well, either close to 30 or in their 30s. And I think a lot of younger millennials don't get that when they see their guy who's 26 or 24 or even 28 just come up short against more of a veteran fighter. And so I think maturity and composure has something to do with it. And I think also experience, man.
Yeah, I was going to say experience.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're talking about these guys. Yeah, they're strong, they're fast, they're athletic, they recover so fast. You know, and it's tough when you're doing so well. And even I tell even a lot of younger fighters that are kind of getting into, you know, MMA and things like that, and you know, they're fighting on the regional scene. They haven't really fought anyone too tough, and they're like 3, 4, 5-0, and they're like, oh, I want to go on the Contender Series. I want to get in the UFC. I'm like, you have to develop, and of course, you're going to have maybe your first few fights, you're having easier fights, and then you have to start stepping up the level from there, and then you have to challenge yourself. You have to challenge yourself against some, like, you know, if your goal is to be in the UFC, you should fight some UFC veterans. You should fight some guys with tons of experience, because it's hard to, I know it's a great goal and everything for people to accomplish, but if you're so young and you don't have that much experience and you want to get to the big show, that's a tough place to try to develop and kind of learn in the UFC, because you're going to fight tough people and maybe you won't run through these people. And then it starts to get in someone's head too. It's like, okay, I'm 5-0. I have 5 first round knockouts. You get in the UFC and then you're in a fight. You're in a dog fight. You know what I mean? Then you learn a lot about yourself right there. And if you're not mentally tough, that's when people will break, you know what I mean? And then you'll see people go 1-2 out of the UFC or 0-2 out. And that's just something that I'm glad the route I went coming up in the sport. I had tough goes and things like that. And I'm just grateful for that, the route that I went in my journey. But, you know, just talking to all these younger fighters, just so about just wanting to get in the UFC. And I'm like, man, just take your time. You're 22, you're 24. You have plenty of time. I wish I was in your position when I was that age.
Absolutely. And I'm not a professional fighter, but sometimes in life I have younger friends that will say, I want to have my own successful business next year, where at 25 I'm the boss with 1,000 people under me and I'm driving a Rolls Royce. And I'm like, I mean, God bless you if you could do that, but in reality, that's not reality for more than 0.1% of people at 25 years old. And so if you're thinking that quick, you know, unfortunately, you can set yourself up for a lot of disappointment. You got to, you know, no one, it seems like, really wants to pay dues. I think we can all think back to when we're 21. And if someone told us, look, if you work hard, you'll be able to be in this position by the time you're 25. And at 21, most of us will say, screw that. Are you kidding me? I have to wait 4 years to be really good and successful? No, I'm going to find some way around that. And you don't. You really don't. And I think, you know, but it's just kind of a youthful thing. You feel like if I'm not already at the height of success at 25, then somehow I'm a loser. And sadly enough, that can, you know, really break a lot of people when you realize that doesn't happen. But anyway, you're in a great position. I'm excited to see what is happening for you next. Is there anything in talks or anything you can share, or any 1 or 2 people that you'd like to fight? Because you're in the top 10 at featherweight, and I think that you against anyone in the top 10, top 5 is going to be a hell of a fight. But anything you can tell me, or anybody you're hoping to meet?
Yeah, I'm still just kind of recovering, focusing on my knee. You know, it's I had a tough surgery. I was doing well from the get-go, and then for whatever reason, you know, I just had a lot of complications from the surgery. So like 5 months after, I had to go back and do a few different procedures, and it's just been tough. So I've just been 100% focused on recovery. I was doing PT 4 or 5 times a week, working with my strength coach, working with my boxing coach. I just started getting back working with my wrestling and jiu-jitsu coach, and just kind of drilling. But I'm really just focused on that. Like in my mind, I'm like, man, I want to get in there and fight before 2021's up. But right now it's like, it's a little too soon to tell. I'm just kind of taking it week by week, but I am making tons of progress. So I have to constantly zoom out and kind of see where I've come from and the things that I'm able to do now that I couldn't even do a month ago, 3 months ago. So I'm just kind of taking it, day by day, week by week, and just kind of moving forward. But I'm hoping to get in there before 2021. I've fought every year since, who knows, 2010 or 11. So, I don't want to be inactive for an entire year.
Right, but obviously you've got to be smart and fight when you're ready. If you had to pick, let's say you couldn't pick Brian Ortega or Alexander Volkanovski because they're fighting each other, but if you could pick any of the other guys from Max Holloway to Zabit to Yair to Edson Barbosa to the Korean Zombie, anyone like that. If you had to pick your top 2 fun fights that if Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby said, Josh Emmett, you tell us 2 guys that you want, and we'll see if we can get one of them, which 2 do you think you might pick?
Man, obviously someone in front of me, title eliminator. That would be the thing. Whoever is going to get me closer to the title. Like if they'll line it up and say, win this fight, you fight for the title, I will fight anybody. I was ranked 6. I saw they just kind of moved me around. So anyone in front of me that's going to get me closer to that. So it really just depends, because even people that I want to fight, sometimes I don't get that. So I'm going to sit back and kind of, again, see what they offer me and kind of go from there.
Absolutely makes sense. And because there's some great fights up there, I don't know that Max is scheduled to fight anyone. I know that for a while they had Zabit scheduled to fight Yair, and then that's off, and Zabit was hurt. But there's so many great fights out there. When it comes down to the winners of the the coaches of the Ultimate Fighter having that fight, do you think Brian Ortega has something for Alex Volkanovski? And let me make this a 2-part question. Brian Ortega, a year and a half after losing to Max Holloway, came back against the Korean Zombie, and most of the people felt that off of that loss, the Zombie, that was his fight. And all of a sudden, Brian Ortega came out after like a 2-year layoff and looked like Brian Ortega 2.0. I mean, most people didn't, even the Zombie looked like he didn't know what the hell he was looking at. And it's almost like all of a sudden Brian Ortega upped his striking game exponentially. How do you think that happened? Was it that much of a difference, or is it just the fans thought it was? And how do you think Ortega matches up with Alexander Volkanovski?
Yeah, from that fight, no, he looked good. Ortega looked good. I thought he was training with TJ and those guys. And so, Ortega, he has some of the best jiu-jitsu in the UFC, not only just in the featherweight division. So it's like they have great wrestlers over there. So he's going to improve his wrestling. He's going to improve his striking and things like that. And he looked great. And then Zombie, and I'm not sure if Zombie was, he looked really good in his last fight against Dan Ige. But the fight against Ortega, I know he got rocked early in the first or second round, but also he did his whole camp in Korea kind of by himself, so he wasn't in his element either. I think Eddie Cha went out to Korea and they just kind of did the camp out there. But now I know he's back in the States before that last fight. And then as far as the Volkanovski Ortega fight, I'm looking forward to that. Really anyone in front of me and in my weight class, even in general, people behind me, I always, I watch all the fights, but I'm especially keeping my eye on the featherweights. I think it'll be a great fight. As far as predictions go, it's always hard because I can argue how Ortega is going to win. I can argue how Volkanovski is going to win, but Volkanovski is the champion. He is undefeated in the UFC. He's beat some of the greats, the GOATs in the division with Jose Aldo and then Max Holloway. I know the second one was a little controversial, but still he is undefeated in the UFC. He's the champion. It's just if I had to put my money like that, I would probably lean towards Volkanovski.
Absolutely, good analysis. I don't know if you ever watch other organizations. I would imagine you do. There's nothing in your UFC contract that says what you have to watch on TV or not as far as MMA. So interesting one with AJ McKee and Patricio Pitbull in Bellator. AJ McKee is an interesting fight history. His father was a very tough guy back in the day, Antonio McKee, and AJ McKee, second generation. They really brought him up well. He first started facing guys that were pretty much cans, and then he gradually started improving, facing somewhat tougher guys, and pretty soon he had a couple wins against some really good guys. And now he's got the big man, not physically the big man, because Patricio Pitbull is about 4 inches shorter than AJ, but he's got that muscle, he's got that confidence, and he's got 2 titles and an enormous amount of experience. How do you feel that fight plays out?
Yeah, it's like I do watch a lot of fights. Like obviously I know who those guys are. I've seen McKee or AJ fight a few times, and he's really good. And I'm just not sure, but it's hard, because it's like I could if he wins, I won't be surprised. But then going back to Pitbull is a 2-division champion, things like that. He has the experience. I'm just excited to watch the fight. But anytime there's a champion involved and they've been at the top for a while, I usually will lean towards them a little bit more, unless it's some I don't know. I was gonna say in the UFC, it's different just because when someone's coming up, when Ngannou was going to fight Stipe, things like that, then you can I'm kind of going with the champion just because he beat him before, but then I'm like, but Ngannou, if he lands a good punch, if he, there's a argument I can make for how he can beat the champion, but I don't follow too much of the promotion, so I will watch that. And we also have our guy Chris Gonzalez. He's fighting on he's on the main card as well. I think he's fighting the number 4 ranked guy in the lightweight division. So I'm excited for him to get in the mix and hopefully take that guy's spot.
Yes.
Only 3 fights in the Bellator octagon.
Absolutely, and he's a slight dog. Chris Gonzalez is a slight dog over under Goiti Yamauchi, and so knowing he's an alpha male guy, I will look at that because there may be some money that one can gain.
Yeah, I was looking at Chris was like a plus 141 or something. So I'm like, hey, I might make some money off of him this week.
I like it. Absolutely. Let me 2 more minutes with you. We have, and I'd like to get your opinion on UFC this weekend, if I could. Any thoughts on the main event? Sean Strickland and Uriah Hall, and then maybe I'll ask you about one more. But what do you think? That's an interesting matchup. Any insight you could give us? Because it looks like they're both hot fighters, more experienced as Hall, but the bigger fighter looks like Strickland, and Strickland's been looking like he's so composed in there and strong. I don't know though, but a lot of people are picking Hall, although Strickland is a slight favorite. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a tough fight too. Just because Strickland has been looking really good, and he keeps getting better and better in his fights, and he just comes forward and he's just relaxing there and piecing people up. But then Uriah Hall, he's so crafty, and he's been at a new gym in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm,
and
I believe so.
Yeah, so
he is MMA.
Yeah, under great coaches and teammates and stuff like that, and I don't know, it's going to be. I think it just depends how if Strickland can just kind of pressure Hall and get him, backing up the whole time and just stay in his face and, work the body and just land big shots. I could see him, pulling off maybe a finish or get the decision. But then if Hall gets in his groove and he stays at distance, then he's super fast, he's super powerful, and he throws unorthodox strikes from all weird angles, whether they're kicks or punches. So that's hard to train for someone like that. So it's like, if that's kind of the range, then I could see, Hall catching him and getting a finish. So it's with predictions, man, it's tough because I can argue how both guys can win, but I probably won't be betting on that fight.
Understood. It's a close one. Any Team Alpha Male on the UFC card this Saturday?
No.
Okay, because we were looking at there's some good fighters with the girls in there with Ashley Yoder and Jinyu Fry. I think one of my producers wanted me to get a 30-second opinion. If you know the girls there, Jinyu Fry.
Yeah, I know Ashley Yoder. Yeah, she's tough. I don't know too much about Fry, but I'm sure if I saw her face, I would recognize her. And then, but I'm really not sure. I know Yoder's been training out at CSA now with those guys and Coach K, and so her Muay Thai's looking a lot better from videos and previous fights that I've seen her in, and her jiu-jitsu game is pretty good. But so not really knowing the other lady, I would just go with Yoder.
Absolutely. And I know Brian Barberina and Jason Witt's going to be a hell of a fight. The Vanilla Gorilla. Barberina's a tough guy. Any quick pick on that one?
Yeah, I'd go with Barberina. I don't really know too much about Witt, but I saw he was he's a talented fighter, and he's a big favorite, and
a fan favorite, but then Barberina, big favorite. Yeah, here Barberina's a tough guy. Bam, bam. That's for sure. Well, Josh Emmett, man, I'm so glad you're healing up. I'm glad you're going to be smart as you have to, and just wait till you are ready. And then I know you want to jump in there before the end of this year. Let us know, man. I'm always excited to see you fight, and always appreciate your time. When you find out, let us know. Obviously, if the news breaks somewhere else, it has to be that, so we can't always get breaking news, but whatever you can tell us, and then we'd love to have you on a week or two before that to help promote the fight as well.
For sure, yeah. I'll keep you guys posted. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome, and thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate you jumping on the MMA Power Hour. Josh Emmett, keep on healing up, man, and you have a great night. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.